All right, I got some things to talk about. This is just, I didn't really know how else to do this. I'm not gonna edit this video. I don't even have a clear train of thought. I just want to get out the thoughts about the new Deltarune chapter that I haven't even finished. But I've been spoiled to the point where I already know what happens in every single route in every single part of the game, right? So I have some thoughts. Um, First, I want to talk about a bit of a conundrum with the timeline. And this is how we know Sans is Sans from Deltarune is Sans from Undertale. Sans from Deltarune is Sans from Undertale previous to how he became Sans from Undertale, and how the timeline works, but also things in Deltarune have to come before Undertale. Okay, well, let's just talk about this. In the current game, we at the festival in both the weird route and the main route, but particularly in the weird route, we'll talk about it. Or at least I've been told about these facts. I went through the weird route. Whenever I launched up the game, you guys saw my save data. We went through the weird route, and in that route, I very clearly remember Sans telling us to draw us and our friends so we can get a future discount on the ice cream. It's a very dumb moment. It's not very pivotal at all, but it actually means a lot more because those three people are the same. This is probably a theory that's already happened. I'm just re-elaborating it, but I'm assuming that the three people that are inside of the Don't Forget little poster board inside of Undertale, inside of Sans's the back of his house, inside of the time machine room that people have been theorizing for ages, Sans's nest room, if you will. The whole point is that they're inside of that room in one of the data things. The reason why Sans was nest is because there was a badge and there was a photo that said "Don't forget." Right? And that's what happened whenever you did something special in the game. I don't remember. I think it's something to do with sparing every. I know it's the pacifism thing, but there was something else that you could do that gave you different text dialogue for the room. But one of them gave you a badge, and the other gave you a page. Or no, I mean inside of the room. In one of the things, it just showed you a page with three people on it, and then another one, of the same of a different route, right? Was of people, three people with the thing "Don't forget" and they're smiling, right? So it was said to be a photo, I will say, and in the weird route, it's only a drawing. But is there a possibility that this is from Undertale? And what does that mean if it is from Undertale? Because let's just go through this. If it is from Undertale, then that means that Deltarune Sans has to be Undertale Sans from a different timeline because he has a picture from a completely different. At least he has to be from the future, from the past, right? Like at the worst case scenario, which it wouldn't even make a goddamn bit of sense. But in the worst case scenario, Chris, Susie go to Sans, they draw a picture and give it to Sans, and then Sans, as well as everyone else in the underground, after all of this shit happens in the weird route, I guess, because that's where there become three. I'm pretty sure in the weird route it's four people with Noel being added into the picture. But anyways, the whole point that I'm trying to say is that the three people have to be, in this theory, it has to be the three people inside of the cupboard. But also at the complete start of chapter one, we're introduced by Gaster, which we wouldn't have known if we didn't play the exterior game of Undertale. So we're in a very weird conundrum, where Deltarune has to be the future of Undertale logically, and also has to be the past of it has to be the future and the past of Undertale for any of its things to make sense, unless we're making Gaster into some like being above all, right? So let's just talk about different evidence points that you can use in this discussion. So, um, in chapter 5, it should also be noted that there is a cutoff point of the 5 eggs from the Eggman. As inside of the egg room, we're told to not look for the Eggman again. I don't know if this is like a secret or not. Of hey, don't look for the Eggman, but he's actually still going to be here in chapter 6. But chapter 5 feels like a cutoff point. It cuts off the egg, then it also cuts off the shadow crystal because we were told by Sham that you don't need any more crystals after the chapter 4. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen everything about this game. So if the 5th crystal is it, that's it. But if I remember correctly, you can't bring the 5th crystal to Sham. So that means chapter 6 is going to be whenever that happens, right? And also, completely off topic, I'm just getting my thoughts out there before I make any sort of theory or any sort of claim about the game. It should also be noted that in the weird route, whenever Noelle and Chris are drowning, right, you can. How do I word this? Obviously, we all know about go to chapter 7, flip B, right? And the reason why is possibly because Chris made the fountain in chapter 5 for the Flower King and possibly may make the chapter 6 fountain, or maybe it's just because Chris isn't there to make the fountains or to even experience the fountains with Susie and he just skips straight to the end, right? And we're not going to know probably for another 3 days, 3 years, right? Even if chapter 6 is coming fast. But still, it should be noted that in the weird route, well, let's just go through the line of how the weird route starts. Chapter 1, there's not really much you can do with the weird route. And that's pretty obvious because it starts in chapter 2. But in chapter 2, the weird route forces you to get, I'm pretty sure it forces you to get the crystal from Spamton and the weapon from Spamton. But then it also forces you to not get the egg, right? So the whole point of the weird route is that you're supposed to be a murderous psychopath, right? With Noel. So in chapter 2, you're a murderer, and you have to kill Spamton to get his weapon, and you have to get the egg, and the weapon goes to Rouse, right? And then yada yada yada. Chapter 3, you can't really continue it because chapter 4 is where all the shit goes down. But chapter 3, you kind of sneak some sauce in there by doing the prophecies, which have already been pretty much broken down and explained as the past, present, and future of the prophecies, with it showing Des and Asriel and Noel doing it. It's very weird. I don't know if I fully agree with that theory, but all I can say is that the game is based off of the prophecies, so therefore the prophecies are tied to the game as well as it's the same thing, right? So that means that the game is telling us something about our either current prophecy or the past of the prophecy because we know a dark world opened long ago, and we know that I think we can know that Des and Asriel had to do with something about that with the bunker and bullshit, right? And that theory pretty much nailed it on the head before the game came out about no or about Noel, Des, and Asriel going into the bunker, and we see in this that they did in fact do bunker stuff, and that there was a fountain. And their guess was that the person that was making this theory guessed that the fountain was inside of the bunker, and that something happened with Noel freezing Des and Asriel being there, and then also having to escape, and then Asgore saw it, and then everybody moved on. But anyways, the whole point is that that can't be the case because Noelle literally says in this that she's never felt this strong before. So it kind of discontinues the theory, but also kind of proves the theory of at least the prophecies being based in some sort of accuracy of the past about how they interacted with each other. But I'm pretty sure Noelle can be taken out of the equation and that she is just an outlier because she's sisters to possibly the Roaring Knight or daughter of the Roaring Knight. I don't know, man. It's a holiday, so. Anyways, back to the weird route. Chapter 3, you do the quests, right? You do the video game quests, you do all 3 of them. You do the 1225, right? You do that secret, and then you could, if I remember correctly, you can still do Eggman in that. Oh, wait, can you? I don't think you can. I think it's chapter 2 and chapter 3 that cuts you off from doing the egg shit, and at egg 4 you can get inside of the window. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is whenever you get to chapter 4, you continue the weird route by interacting with Noelle, which, as she says in chapter 5, changes her, right? And then you continue this by looking at the prophecy, seeing the roots prophecy, and also you're able to grab the egg from this chapter. So obviously, what we can see of what's going on here is that the entire weird route does not rely on the egg route or whatever the egg is trying to build up to, which we know it's already built up to it. The 5 eggs have already been collected, so there's got to be something going on with that. But it does have some basis in collecting the shadow crystals because it's in a route of murdering things. Spamton was in your path and you murdered him and got the crystal. You're not forced to get an egg in any of these routes, but you are forced to get a crystal, right? A shadow crystal. So it's kind of like, and then also it should be noted that the Roaring Knight comes up to you, and unless you have a lose under your belt, you have to kill the Roaring Knight, or kill, but defeat the Roaring Knight and get the shard out of his sword, which also gives you a black shard, or sorry, a shadow crystal, right? It just feels like the game's screaming to us that this route was the Shadow Crystal route. And then now in chapter 5, it just reveals to us that fuck every theory that you've ever made about Shadow Crystal and Weird Route being connected in the slightest. Because first off, Sham says it'll be done after 5 crystals, and we kind of already knew that. But now that we know who the 5th crystal is, which is Mad Mew Mew for some fucking reason, right? It just disheartens any sort of theory anyone could have had about the connection between the shadow crystals, the weird route, any sort of route in the game that currently exists, right? It's just it's such a weird situation. It is and it isn't something. Because it is the beginning of Undertale and it is at the end of Undertale. It is, I mean, the monsters are free and the monsters are also never thought to be trapped. So it has to be the beginning, but also has to be the end because therefore the monsters wouldn't be trapped. And it's also yes and no on the I mean, it's obviously a no now, but it's also a mix between some sort of yeses and nos about what part of it is a crystal route and what part of it isn't a crystal route, right? And like they allowed you to not get the eggs every chapter inside of the weird route, which completely canceled out any sort of thing that the eggs were going to do to stop your completion of any of the quests, right? Because that's the whole point of the eggs. It was to stop you from completing a chapter successfully inside of the achievements board, right? Because they're Easter eggs and they block out whatever gaster buffoonery is happening with the lore of the eggs. Neither here nor there. The whole point is that that was supposed to be like you can't do the egg route in this, but every single chapter since the chapter 5, the weird route has had access to the shadow crystals. It just doesn't make any goddamn bit of sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. Not a single bit of sense. So, at the end of the day, to put all of this together, I have a suspicion that Deltarune has to be either, I mean, obviously, it has to be some sort of alternate universe that is both a prequel and a sequel to the hit game Undertale, right? Because Sans, we know he's a time traveler and he figures out time travel stuff. We also know that he breaks the laws of times and space based off of what Sans says. One moment. We know he breaks the laws of times and space because of what Papyrus says about Sans in his room whenever we go into the Sans house and he messes with this across time and space, like Papyrus says. We know that there's some sort of connection to him with Gaster, so there's a possibility that that's how he got into this circumstance, traveling across time and space. And we know that Gaster has some sort of connection with time and space as he was shattered across time and space. Once again, we should keep in mind that shattering is probably not shattering and is rather some sort of weird determination type of bullshit, right? It's so many bi-layers. Toby Fox, what are we cooking with? And then on top of all of this, in the weird route, even if we could get the Shadow Crystal, there is no way for you to access the home, right? In the weird route, Chris sleeps in. I'm pretty sure they don't sleep in the other routes. I haven't actually played the other routes because I only set up a weird route for this because I thought that was going to be the big reveal of the whole thing, right? But as I've seen of other playthroughs and the small tidbits that I've seen it, Chris goes to the festival if it's not a weird route. So it can be inferred. I mean, obviously, you can go into the home before you do anything. You can go fight at the dojo and fight against the three little trash gang with the weird freedom motif at no benefit, I guess. I haven't seen the end of that fight, but I know it exists. The whole point, and I keep saying the whole point, but the whole point is that it doesn't make any goddamn sense. I'm going to throw a theory out there. I have a suspicion that since Gaster is shattered across time and space, that he is not relative to this game's physics of time, just how we aren't in the game's physics of time. We also have had our suspicions about how Gaster was an actual person, possibly just like the speakings of Toby Fox through a character in this game, right? My suspicion is that Gaster is in some sort of cahoots with Sans by the end of the weird route. Because in the current game, we do not see Sans interacting at all with Gaster. We don't see him doing anything suspicious. He just chuckles around and he's with Toriel like the day that she almost gets or no, the day after she almost gets completely just decimated and robbed by Tenna, right? So Sans has also been seen as a figure that is very strong, knows his way around a battle, so it is probably going to be the case that someone fights Sans. Could be us, could be Sans fighting the Roaring Knight. But I have a suspicion that Sans will fight someone powerful by the end of the game and will be given some sort of semblance of a choice to go into a different timeline to do what he does in Undertale. And it should also be noted that none of this would matter if the soul didn't matter so much in this story. Because the soul itself is given to us by Gaster. That is just a known fact, is that the soul was given to us by Gaster. Now, if you want to go check out any information about how the soul could possibly be given by Gaster buffoonery, and of what nature the soul is to Undertale, and the weird conglomeration of what Flowey and Chara the Flower Child is, just go check out Sock Muppet at Sock Muppet on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's at Sock Muppet, but they have a bunch of Undertale videos, and they only just got out a Deltarune video before the. I think he didn't play the third and fourth chapter, but anyways, it doesn't matter. The whole point, I said it again. The whole point is that I'm 100% sure that Sans is going to play a bigger part in Deltarune, which will then circle him back to being able to play a part in Deltarune, and it's basically a loop. The prophecy needs to be fulfilled in this one thing. I mean, there's prophecies in both worlds, but the prophecy in the second world of Undertale is a little bit like more frisky, and it's not oriented in any certain way. All we know of the prophecy is that an angel will save the monsters of the underground in some way. Will relieve them of their duties or whatever the fuck. And it always comes down to either Azrael saving all the souls or Frisk, Kara murdering all the monsters. They're going to clear out all of the underground, or they just don't fulfill the prophecy and just fuck off in the neutral route. But anyways, something's going to happen. Actually, we got another whole. Oh my god, we have a whole nother layer to this. Okay. It should be noted that the soul from Deltarune has to be creation of the soul from a genocide route. I remember this very personally. I have to remember how I remember this or why I remember this as important. So, at the end of Undertale Genocide, we are given the option to give up our soul to Kara to reset the world. So she is given the access to our soul to save and the power to do whatever the fuck you do with the soul, right? Especially the red soul, because we know what it's the strongest soul because it's stronger than all the other souls in the underground based off of the fight with Azrael, where it says we can still have the save effect, even though Azrael has every soul in the underground, including the 6 human souls. Anyways, it should be noted that the soul from Undertale has to be the conglomeration of the dust from Azrael based off of him being infused, his dust being infused into the flowers and into the flower bed where the soul was being kept of the first human. So his dust was inside of the soul, and this can be seen in Undertale by many cutscenes of it flashing white, which we know is a semblance of a soul being in some sort of between state, as with Metaton and as with like I gotta think of all these different characters that this goes with. Like in chapter 1, we see Chris rip out the soul and it flashes white as if to symbolize something special with the soul. And this isn't just a one-off thing, I'm pretty sure. It happens several times. So it has to be telling us something. And we know that those flowers are the flowers from the surface world that were tampered with and were given some sort of fucking determination and flower child business and all that. But what we know is that Frisk has to have that red soul, and we know the red soul is the same one as given to Frisk, and the same one that was given to Chris in both of the different realms, if not the same realm. We just know that the end step of all of this is that both of them have the souls by the beginning of their respective games. One's more aware of the effect on itself than the other, right? The vessel of Chris is a little bit more nuanced of knowing what's going on. He knows that he's a vessel, but it still doesn't change that both of them are vessels that technically don't have a soul, or at least Chris did have a soul because we see him in chapter 5 turning into some sort of zombie whenever not having the soul for too long inside of the weird route. Just, it's so many layers. Back to the original thing, the soul of Kara has to be fused with Azrael's soul to go to Deltarune and to be transferred by Gaster, and that's how we know it's the same soul. And therefore, at the end of the route, Sans himself has to have the picture to bring over to his room to put inside of the fun gang drawing inside of his drawer, right? And he also has memory of different timelines. He also does time traveling bullshit, and we know that Papyrus has it has to be almost a completely different person across the different routes unless something weird happened at the end of the round. It just at the at the end of the game, there is a non-zero chance that Sans will be a humongous part of all of this and will possibly just be thrown back into some sort of different reality where he will just drop in out of nowheres, like said in Undertale. He just drops into Snowden out of nowheres, which he also drops in out of nowheres in fucking Deltarune. He's just the most suspicious man that's ever lived. But consolidation and conclusion. Sans from Undertale, by the end of the game, in the weird route specifically, this might not apply to the normal route, but has to be in the weird route based off of the 3 pictures thing. We can confirm that. But we know that Sans from Deltarune and Sans from Undertale have to be the same person based off of how they're acting, how they've evolved, and we know Deltarune comes before the Sans from Undertale because of how much childish he is, and how much more childish he is than the original Sans. So we know that something will happen to Sans that'll bring him back in time in some way, that'll make it so he misses where he came from and knows he can't go back, as he says in Undertale. We also know he has some sort of connection to Gaster because of him doing some bullshit with the Gaster Blasters and with the fucking Hyper Goner from Asriel. It's just, I'm so done. Chapter 5 was a fucking mess. Like, it's horrible. And this is not even talking about any of the new characters, any of the stuff that Asriel says about Dark Worlds. This is just the concept of Deltarune and Undertale either being a prequel or a sequel from itself, and why it can't be just one. It has to be both. Is this why the prophecy loops? Is it because, or why the prophecy just keeps going, and why the first prophecy didn't work with Des and Azrael? Is it because the prophecy did work, but it's looping? It's just never a loop? Like, who was the cage in their story? It doesn't make any goddamn bit of sense. But I digress. I will end off this 25-minute rant of a still picture of Creator, with one last thought, and it's that it was a fine chapter. I loved the weird route. That gave so much aura to Noelle, and now I have multiple different Noelle PNGs to listen to before I go to bed tonight. Or not PNGs, but I can listen to the different sound effects of the silly Noelle PNGs and be absolutely covered in euphoria because of the best sounds that have ever graced my ear. Like, let me just pull up my last video. I just want you to hear this. I want you to hear this peak. No, not that. Uh that's chapter 5. Deltarune. Sure, from the, you'll see her and you'll never have to, whatever, I don't know. Holy shit, aura. Great. Wait, give me the funny Noelle things. Me too. Oh, also, this is a fucking beat. Turn that shit up. Bam, bam, boom, bam, bam, boom, bam, bam, boom, bam, bam. Boom, bam, bam, boom, bam, bam. Boom, bam, bam, boom, bam, bam, boom, bam, bam. But I can't. I couldn't. Okay, give me the Noelle things. Black now? Chris, you actually changed. You found out how to stop being Chris. And no one else has noticed. Give it to me. Because they don't want to. They don't want to see how interesting you are now. Holy Noelle dialogue. Keep marching down the same path without even thinking where it goes. Chris, being around you is changing me too. Chris, when I cast Snowgrave, I felt stronger than I have in my entire life. It just completely disproves that one part of the theory. This is what I was talking about. It's horrible. It's horrible to say that, but Chris, if the whole point of this, just like I said, closing arguments, this is peak. Chapter 5, Weird Route, is peak. It's sad that we're gonna have to wait like fucking 4, maybe 3 years. I mean, if chapter 6 goes so fast, it might even just, chapter 6 might just release in December, and then we'll get chapter 7 in like 2027. That's like peak Toby Fox working at his full potential, full speed, right? But otherwise, we're gonna be waiting like 3 years for this. And this is a great conclusion to hold people on, to make them study Noelle's text box. But I should tell you, Rudy is definitely the fucking knight. Did you hear what he says like moments before this? Roaring bunkers guard. Roaring. Let's go check out the bunker before we go. Oh shit, Rudy? Is that the knight? No, I still got some lights to finish up here. You sure, man? Susie, it's better you learn sooner than later. Holidays are always full of surprises.
Dude, it's screaming. It's the fucking roaring night, dude. It's him. It's the roaring night.
It's the roaring night. I know. It's crazy. Okay, so it just says so much shit. We know that the holidays are the fucking core of all of this. They have to be. One of their children is fucking insane right now because of the weird route. One of their parents is an absolute masochist, I guess, to just making Chris suffer. Okay, one of the kids is fucking dead or disappeared in the game save or the Roaring Knight, and the father is like definitely the Roaring Knight. So you know, we also have to keep in mind what the situation is here. Now, I will say, it is a little bit against the ideology of how the okay, wait, no, let me think about this. Okay. So we know that the knight appears in the sequences of chapter 5. However, we do not know. I haven't watched the entire closing of chapter 5, but I'm pretty sure that there is no closing like, oh, the people in the town were finished with their ceremony bullshit, right? So if they're not finished with their ceremony, that means that the person that is the roaring knight has to be out of the ceremony unless they sneaked out and it's secretly death. So either they're not in the town, either they're in the town and they're at the ceremony, they're in the town and they're not at the ceremony, or they're not in the town and they can't be at the ceremony because people outside of the town don't exist. This town's really small, okay? So if they're in the town and the ceremony, they can't be the Roaring Knight. If they're in the town and they left the ceremony, then it could still be Carol, I guess, maybe. But I feel like this is just telling us that the Roaring Knight did not go to the ceremony because otherwise he wouldn't be there at the. I mean, it was pretty late into the chapter that I saw the Roaring Knight murder Flowery. Spoilers, by the way. I don't know if you clicking on this video named whatever it is. I don't know what it's named yet, but I'm pretty sure you'll know that spoilers are going to happen. So Flowery dies, right? Because of the Roaring Knight, and it can be pretty much assumed that Rudy knows of the situation with the flower and what it is and why the damage is fake. So we can pretty much, and he could probably assume that it's a flower anyways because his name is fucking Flowery and he's screaming around like a fucking Flowery would. But still, I'm pretty sure the knight has to be Rudy because he knows Asgore. He knows where Asgore is, and if this flower's been with Asgore since fucking college until now, that means that the flower would be something that Rudy would know about because they've been friends for so long. So he knows how important it is to murder this fucking flower and uncover the shelter code for the second thing, right? It's just it just has to be Rudy. And this just screams it more because we know that Rudy is tired. Now, like I said, not in the not weird route, he might not be tired while hanging up the lights. But as I see it in my current peripherals, this tells me if Rudy is tired, after we just saw the knight doing a bunch of fucking bullshit the night before, doing a bunch of I guess the day before, but doing a bunch of bullshit with summoning an entire demon of the darkness, an entire guardian, horrible monstrosity of darkness, and then getting the shit beat out of that darkness thing, I'd be pretty tired too. I'd be fucking exhausted, especially if I have some sort of like horrible sickness like Rudy's father, or not like Noel's father, Rudy. So I feel like this is just saying, hey, he's tired not because of the lights. He's probably not even doing the lights, but he's probably more tired because he was the fucking roaring knight. But he could still be tired because of the fucking lights. Anyways, Sans will be important. Actually, let me go back in the video. you draw you and your friends. That way I can give you a discount. Alright, whatever. Here, me, Chris, and, Rouse. I know he can't use it, but I gotta put him on. Oh, the reason why Noel was written down in the not weird route is because Noel was with them during the festival, right? So I'm pretty sure that the only reason that these three are on there in this route and why this makes it the weird route and why Sans has to be a reoccurring character across every route. Okay, this doesn't go both ways. Sans from Deltarune is Sans from Undertale from the past, but Sans from Undertale is not Sans from Deltarune because Sans from Undertale knows more things than Sans from Deltarune. So we know that Sans from Undertale is a completely. I mean, they're the same person on a personal standpoint, but they know different things. Like Sans has evolved from what he once was. We also know that Sans is aware of the existence of multiple people from within the game, including Toriel, which he definitely wouldn't know the existence of. We know he knows the existence of Toriel from the end of the game, and because he was talking to her at the door. And we know that he knows who Toriel is because of the way that he acts towards her. Now, I don't know if he knows from within his universe, which is the current one, that she's the queen. I don't believe he does. And Alphys doesn't even know he's the queen. So that's the Gaster theory, the writing on the walls from Sock Muppet that I suggested earlier. But he doesn't know about there being a queen. Papyrus wouldn't know because he also doesn't know that Toriel's a queen, and he doesn't leave the house, so he probably doesn't even know who Toriel is, right? And therefore, at the end of the game, Sans sees Asgore. Obviously, he knows who Asgore is because he's been he's been talking to Asgore the entire game at up until this point in Undertale, and he also knows of Asgore because he's cucking Asgore because of Toriel, right? He knows Asgore on both sides, so he would extra know Asgore whenever he transfers realms. It knows how much of a stupid flower-loving idiot he is, right? And he knows Undyne being some sort of police force. We don't see him interacting with Undyne more than we see Papyrus at interacting with Undyne. I don't believe that Sans and Undyne ever interact until the end of the game. And they don't really interact in this game either, right? They're kind of just separate forces. I don't think Alphys interacts with them either, except whenever Alphys was trying to get the chocolates from Undyne, and you go to Sans and you sell the chocolates back to him whenever he damn well knows who bought these chocolates, right? And that's how you get $5 for the festival, whatever. I still, like I said, I haven't played half the game at bare minimum. I'm currently playing through a weird route canceled um to try and actually play out the chapter, but you can't really succeed with that. I'm gonna play out a canceled weird route chapter so I can get the crystals so I can have a second save. So it'll be a canceled weird route with all 5 crystals, and then it's gonna be whenever 7 comes out, of course. The weird route from chapter 5 to chapter 7 side B, just straight up. I'm just not even gonna save over it, right? Um Anyways, I've said that this would be not it'll be done several times. And I haven't ended it because there's so much to talk about this one chapter and things that I don't even probably know yet. Like, what the fuck does the foxes mean? What does it mean? What do the boxes mean? Why are they foxes? This is a fucking garden. Why are there foxes? It's gotta mean something. Why are there foxes? I don't know anything about how Mad Mew Mew. I mean, I know who Mad Mew Mew is, and I know what they are in comparison to who they are in the game. Like, I saw the entire boss fight. I got the lore from the boss fight, and I know that they were an existing Nintendo Switch extension based off of a ghost that was inhabiting Mad Mew Mew. I don't remember if it was a different ghost than all of the ghosts, like Mad Dummy Ghost, Ghost inside of Original Dummy, Napstablook, and Metaton. Wait, we know there's four ghosts. Okay, so it has to be the Mad Dummy infusing themselves within Mad Mew Mew, right? I mean, we know it was Mad Dummy, but I meant from Undertale, right? So it happens in both Undertale. Maybe that's part of the prophecy. Dude, that would be fucking crazy if that was part of the prophecy. That'd be nuts in both games if that was just like a certain thing that has to happen is that Mad Dummy has to become their character and then fucking explode or whatever happens in Undertale. All right. That's wraps. If you are following along, I appreciate you. If you're extra following along with anything that's been going around, going along around here, or if you're someone that's currently working with me, um, I will be out of town and won't be able to work on Creator, the VR MMORPG, for probably 2 weeks. I don't know anybody that works for me that's watching any of these, but it's better to say. Um, for anybody that possibly could care. Wink, wink. Anyways, that'll be it. Um, if you pass by this and have any questions, comments, concerns about anything that I've said that doesn't make any goddamn sense, it's Undertale. None of it makes sense. Or it's Deltarune too, but neither of it makes sense. It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to fuck your brain until the answers come out, right? But that's it. I am departing.